Recording, I think so. Okay. So, if you are watching from home, there we go. You have to do this assignment first before you watch any of the rest of this, and you have to do a rough translation of the Declaration of Independence, which our viewers playing here in our studio have already done. Yay! And so now we're going to see how they did. So again, you got to do the assignment first before you get all the answers to the questions, which come here. So what we said in part one is this is our introduction. More formally, it's our preamble. Amble is a kind of a slow way of walking. And this is before you even start walking. So it's, before we start walking, we're kind of stretching and getting ready and clearing our throat. And we start with this idea of when in the course of human events. What do we mean by that? When in the course of human events? Anybody? How'd you simplify it? What did you say? Eventually. You kind of, and this is usually what most people say. Like they'll say sometimes or eventually or in history. What you all kind of intuitively get is that he is setting up that there's a context to writing this document, that some things have happened. So you could have said, hey, some stuff went down. Anybody write that? Hey, some stuff went down. I always point out that this is the ultimate in breakup letters. And this is like how you start a breakup. Hey, we need to talk. Right? And then everybody gets quiet. Because the hey, we need to talk means something's coming. Hey, we need to talk means, hey, some stuff has happened. So essentially what he's doing is he's setting up the context of the breakup, which comes here. It becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, which is an elegant way of saying, what? What kind of letter did I say this? What does it say? So I need to bounce, right? This is not working out. It's not you, it's me. We need to go our separate ways. However, this is where we get nice in the breakup letter. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind required that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Say why. Why? What do I have to say? Why can't I just say we're broken up? Because I'm a decent, I'm not a savage. I'm not this brute. Do you ever break up in a text? Time to see other people. Do you ever do it like driving by in a car? Just yell it out the window. We need to break up, right? If you're a human being with any kind of form of feelings, and I won't even go with sympathy, at least empathy, you tell the other person because you've had a relationship. So that's literally what he's saying here. That some stuff has happened. Given the gravity of what we're about to do, I need to explain things. I need to kind of talk about why we're going to go our separate ways. And then in part two, it is our thesis. It is our theories of government, and it is pure Locke. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can just boil that down to what? You have rights. Right? He makes it pretty, and rightly so, because again, this is one of our most fundamental documents, and we want it to read like Shakespeare, but it boils down to Locke's idea that you are born with unalienable rights. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. This is the social contract. You have rights, and governments what? They're there to protect it. That's why we have governments in the first place. Now it gets a little more tricky. We're going to have to start breaking down some of these words. Then whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it. We often skip past the alter, don't we? We just want to get a classroom torn up. We just want to go to the revolution phase. But again, we can do constructive, we can do more radical. Both are in our political traditions, right? So you have rights, governments are there to protect them. If they don't, per the social contract, you can what? Change it, right? Either through radical means or more constructive means. Prudence. It's a woman's name in a Beatles song, but what is prudence? If you're being prudent, I didn't see anybody leap up to get those dictionaries over there, so I assumed AP students, you know what prudence is. You weren't being prudent if you didn't go look up the word. Kind of, yeah, wise. It's like wisely cautious. So, it is not prudent to climb on top of a roof and take great risks with your life. It's not prudent to run across, the street in heavy traffic with your eyes closed. That's not being wisely kind of cautious. So if we're being wisely cautious, it would dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. What do I mean by light? Simple, trivial. You know, again, you go to the store and there's a sales tax. Do you burn the place down? That's kind of superficial, right? They get rid of tater tots. Do you just open? Yeah, tater tots. I agree. Those are good. I don't know what they do to them, but do you revolt over simple things like that? What are transient? People don't often get this one. What is it? Passing. So it's interesting. Like something could be egregious, but if it's only going to be temporary, maybe you don't have the right to revolt. Something could be superficial, but it could be like that dripping water that over time is going to drive you absolutely insane. You need both. It needs to both be serious and long-standing, right? And that's pure law. So you have rights, governments are there to protect them. If they don't, you have the right to change, do radical or less radical, but it's got to be both significant and long-standing. Then, like any good essay, once I've said, this is my thesis, that governments are there to protect rights, and if they don't, you can get rid of it, what do I have to prove? That essentially I've said, we can get rid of government if they violate rights. Now I got to show that the government did what? Violates the rights. It's my list of grievances that as you go through them, oh yeah, that's the Quartering Act. Oh yeah, that's in the Townsend Acts where they restrict the right to a trial by jury. You're going to see. Would you like those transitions? I worked a long time on those. I thought that was kind of magical to kind of line the documents up. You're going to see all the violations and how they relate to the acts. Again, when we started, we talked about to understand our government, you need to understand the framers. To understand the framers, you need to understand the experiences that they went through that shaped them, that led them to create the government that was in response to those experiences. And here is some direct evidence that, of course, their experiences shaped them. And then you get to the conclusion. And I didn't give you a ton of time, but I said it's more than just concluding that we're independent. That England's going to say, oh, you say what now? They're going to have something to say about that, and they're going to be opposed to that. So this is not only a declaration of independence, it's a declaration of war. And if it's a declaration of war, you better have the way to back it. You better have a government there with all the powers of government. So when you line that up with that that kind of magical transition, we're going to declare ourselves free, declare war, and take on the powers of government that include the power to not only declare war but negotiate peace, to make alliances, and to coordinate commerce. Now, they talk about, and it's very eloquent, to support this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. To support this, we're relying on God. That's what providence means. And we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. John Hancock, when he signs this, and he becomes infamous for doing it to the point where anytime you sign something, it's called putting your John Hancock to that, did so with that big, deliberate signature on purpose. He said he wanted John Bull, the nickname for the king, to see it all the way from across the Atlantic. He knew full well when he was signing it, what kind of document was he signing? Treasonous document. And here I am putting my name on it in big bold letters, come get me, right? They knew that they were signing a treasonous document that meant they were risking, by going on to it publicly, they were risking their lives, their fortunes, and their honor, because history goes to the winners. Ben Franklin puts it a little more in a more of a kind of a pithy form. Now we must hang together, or surely we'll all hang separately. There's a literal and a figurative. What's the figurative? Be together, right? Or up there in the Liberty Tree you go, okay? So with that, we're going to conclude, but we did a very kind of fast and quick run through the Declaration of Independence. You, in doing the study guides, need to be more methodical. You need to be fluent. When I test you, you're going to get a question that asks you to do those 4 steps of logic. You're going to have to tell me that governments, you have rights, governments are there to protect them. If they don't, you have the right to alter or abolish, but not for light and transient causes, and remember what those are. You've got to be a little more fluent than maybe this overview presented. And with that, I'm going to let you run for the hills after I just remind you of it. Okay.